All right, so thank you everyone for attending our December Emory Healthcare Health Education Talk. We are very excited to have Reverend Maureen Shelton here to talk about compassion-based training today. So, Reverend, if you'd like to take over and introduce yourself, and then we can begin the presentation.
Sounds great. Thank you so much for the invitation to be here with you all. I was saying before the call that did my student teaching when I was at Emory when they had the teacher training program with the DeKalb County Schools. So I have a very special place in my heart for DeKalb County and educators. So it's a gift to be here with you. My name is Maureen Shelton, and I'm a chaplain educator, ACPE educator, as well as a chaplain. And I work as the director of training and education for our spiritual health program across Emory Healthcare, as well as the director of the Division of Compassion-Centered Spiritual Health with the Wooded Health Science Center here at Emory. So I'm looking forward to spending this 30 minutes with you all and giving you an overview of one way to provide care and support for yourself that we hope might be of help. And I'm going to give you a little overview about this program that comes out of Emory University, as well as practice some of the elements with you today within this 30 minutes. So as an educator of chaplains for the last 30 years here at Emory, I have really benefited from coming across this cognitively based compassion training that was born here at Emory University. And so it's a gift that's right here in our own city that just wanted to make more visible some of the elements of it that support self-compassion, as well as seeing how these practices can enable us to expand our circle of compassion, expand those who we see as connected to us to help support the sense of connection and belonging. So we'll go ahead and start the slides.
Let me.
Thank you for those.
Of course.
So I wanted to start off with giving just kind of a very brief overview of what cognitively based compassion training is, and then talk very specifically about one of the practices that we, I hope, might bring some support to you as you're in your work, as your very important work as educators, as well as during this holiday season. So we can go to the next slide. So these are the 8 practices within CBCT. And one of the aspects of CBCT, cognitively based compassion training, is that it has these 8 practices that are supporting both our sense of how to relate to our self-care, how do we relate to our inner experience with more flexibility and kindness. And these practices actually come out of the work of Dr. Professor Lobson Tenzin Negi, who came to Emory after being 30 years a priest in the Indo-Tibetan tradition, and came here to Emory to get a PhD in religion. And he was teaching this course, and one of the undergrads at Emory said, "We need help, and we think you can give us some help because we have some people who are having mental health crisis in our undergrad community." And so he said, "Okay, let me put something together that doesn't necessitate any belief in any particular religious tradition, and in fact doesn't necessitate any connection to any faith tradition, but is tapping into what CBCT believes is this inherent compassion that we have within us, and helping to make it more accessible in times of stress when we most need it." And so he also hopes that this is supportive or for folks who don't. So it's widely inclusive. So these 8 practices, if you can go to the next slide, there's a little drop down there on the side. This first module is going to spend a little bit more time with is connecting to a moment of nurturance. Now, as we're processing and developing this capacity to cultivate compassion, we found in CBCT through the Center for Contemplative Science and Compassion-Based Ethics, which I'll call the Compassion Center at Emory from now on. They found that when they were teaching these practices, it was very important to start with being able to connect to a moment of nurturance, that when you envisioned it, you could maybe just take a moment to rest in it and kind of remember what it was like to receive this nurturance and support. And this is something that can be really helpful for emotional regulation and for capacity to be more present in the moment with a sense of being grounded in some strength that you have within you. And through the practice, trying to make it more visible how you can access it, even when you're feeling very stressed. The rest of these practices, if you wouldn't mind continuing to click through these, are we start with security priming. There's self-regulation. I'm sorry, go back one more slide. Self-regulation modules, which are more about how to be in relationship to your inner experience with more options, including getting more deep in self-compassion. And you'll see there are 2 modules of this. And then we start to apply this to our relationship to others in the final module. So we can go to the next slide. And so just to say what CBCT defines as compassion is a warm-hearted concern that unfolds when we witness the suffering of others and feel motivated to relieve it. So what we're trying to do throughout these modules of CBCT, and this is a full class, it usually takes 8 to 10 weeks. There's also an online asynchronous learning platform that also involves some instruction that I'll give you more information about. This is a protocol that's the most researched compassion practice in terms of instruction about developing these skills of compassion all around the world. There's a program called SEE Learning, SEE Learning, that is designated for K through 12 education settings. And there's free curriculum available for teachers that want to go through a 7-hour asynchronous course and then be able to download this curriculum to integrate it into your classrooms to help the children access some of these skills as well. But the basis of both these programs is this definition of a warm-hearted concern that unfolds when we witness the suffering of others and feel motivated to relieve it. So it's not saying what compassion will actually look like, but trying to create the inner conditions for compassion to be more readily accessible within ourselves. So we're going to talk a little bit more about this warm-hearted aspect. You can go to the next slide. So just go through those points there and just go to the next one. Thank you. Thanks so much, Grace, for navigating the slides for me. So in the next slide, we're going to just see this integrative model of CBCT. One more slide forward. And this is a model that was developed to kind of say, here's what we're hoping the researchers, this is what we're hoping the researchers will look at to see how CBCT might be of help to building more resilience and compassion and ultimately develop more of a sense of well-being. So this is kind of breaking down some of the elements of each of the classes. But you'll see there to the left that connecting to the moment of nurturance is the beginning point, and that's where we're going to start today. So the next slide, I want to talk a little bit about this model that was developed by Elaine Miller-Karras, and she coordinated with the Compassion Center here at Emory to integrate some of these practices into CBCT, was becoming familiar with this model of the zone of well-being. Now, this model she developed as she's gone in and out of several communities around the world that had gone through a lot of trauma and challenges. And she noticed that one of the things as she was walking people through this is that it was helpful to have a tool that people could refer to kind of notice where they were in their zone of well-being so that they could pause and notice when they needed to resource themselves with some of these practices, grounding practices, to be able to come a little bit more into the zone of well-being. So she defines resiliency as the ability to recover readily from illness, depression, adversity, or the like, a sense of buoyancy. You can go to the next slide. So in this zone of well-being, one of the primary attributes, if you could, sorry, continue to click, these are multiple animated slides, um, is that in the zone of well-being, we know that we're in it when we can reflect, where we can take different perspectives, where we can process information. And, to get where we are right now in all the work that you all do every day in and day out, which I'm so grateful for, you all have developed a lot of strategies for staying in your zone of well-being without even perhaps being aware of it. You can get bumped by something that's activating to you, and then you can just return back without even you being aware of it. But this model is trying to make more visible when those moments might be that we're cumulatively have several different stresses, and we might be feeling a little bit more bumped out of the zone of well-being, and having some perhaps understanding of this can help give us some more options of, oh, I need to go ask for some help, or I can do some resourcing for myself. And if we can click again. So in this zone of well-being, there's this natural up and down. We have feelings of anger, feelings of happiness, feelings of sadness. All of that can be within the zone of well-being. But the primary characteristic is when we feel that we can process information, take different perspectives. So some of the indicators that we might be out of the zone of well-being, if we could press again, click. When those traumatic, stressful events happen, the next slide, the next clip. Stuck in the high zone, we might be feeling this sense of pain, edginess, irritability, a sense of mania, anxiety, panic, angry outbursts. And this is our nervous system telling us some information. And often we don't pause and check in with ourselves. And this model is one way of doing that, saying, where am I? I'm noticing as I get to know myself more around this resiliency piece, I can say, oh, my sensations are telling me that I'm starting to get activated. Like my shoulders are getting closer to my neck. I might be more edgy than usual. I might be having some outbursts. So instead of being harsh on ourselves for this, we can take it as information. Say, actually, my body's trying to tell me something. So how can I pause and say, oh, my body's telling me that I'm feeling on edge. Let me just take a few deep breaths. Or let me practice connecting to this nurturing moment that we're going to talk about in just a moment. Or I can just maybe place my attention on my feet and just walk, noticing my feet, just saying right foot, left foot, right, taking a little break from my mental experience that might be racing. So we can be stuck in the high zone or stuck in the low zone, the sense of more feeling depressed, sadness, isolated, exhausted, fatigue, numbness. And in the talking about the nervous system, these are associated, like the high zone, more with fight, flight, and the low zone more with freeze, like feeling paralyzed. And the high zone feeling like you just want to run away, or perhaps that angry outburst, that fighting. Those are all indicators we might be either out in either of those directions. And we might feel some of both of those when we're out of our zone of well-being. So checking in with ourselves, this tool helps us to know, actually, we need some help. We need some resourcing. And we're trying to increase our capacity to notice that and have more options. So let's go to, I think, the next slide where it says nurturing moment, connecting to a moment of nurture. There we go. You can show all those pictures. Oh, great. So in this practice that we're just going to spend a few moments with, again, this is the first practice of CBCT out of the 8 practices. And again, this is just to practice exploring, not about doing anything perfectly or right, just explore to see if practicing connecting to moments of nurturance that we've had in the past or might have even happened today or that we could imagine might happen in the future, if we can access one of those moments and just allow ourselves to pause and rest in them, even for a brief period of time, if this can help shift us to be a little bit more into the zone of well-being. So when we think about connecting to a moment of nurturance, just some examples here. It could be a moment from connecting with a loved one that comes to mind. Um, Again, maybe a loved one that we've connected with today or from the past. It could also be a moment with a beloved pet. When we see that pet, we just automatically feel that sense of safety, security, connection. Can be also be a time in nature, as pictured there in the top right, where you just felt that sense of ease and comfort. Or it could be, if you identify with a faith tradition, it could be a time from your faith tradition, like a particular sanctuary or a place of connection with your tradition, or a moment of connection in your devotional life, for example, if you have a connection to the faith tradition. So many different options. It could be even a moment when you're giving care and you're receiving it back. You're letting yourself kind of receive it back. Or a time with a stranger who just took a moment to say hello to you or ask how you were, and you could feel that sense of connection and nurture. So it's not the moment of nurture, it's actually a moment of nurture. So just want to invite you, and I don't know if there's any questions to put in the chat about the range of options here of how to connect to a moment of nurturance, these different range of options. Feel free to put questions in the chat at any time. But I'm going to ask you now, if you have something to write with, just to spend a few moments just jotting down a particular moment that's coming to mind. And again, if something doesn't come to mind right away, that's no worries. That's just totally normal. It's part of the process. It might be that you want to think about a moment in the future that you can just imagine would be nurturing, like a time at the beach or a time with a friend on a park bench. Whatever comes to mind. It doesn't have to have happened yet, but a time that you can imagine would be nurturing. Or if it makes sense to you to think about a time from the past or present. So if you could just take a moment or two just to write about one of these moments and just maybe describe what that moment was like or would be like. And if you don't have anything to write with, that's okay. You can just kind of think about it and imagine that. And as you're imagining that moment and just thinking about some of the details, maybe just jotting down a little list of sensations or details you remember, like the person was, if you're with a person, they were smiling, you maybe felt accepted, or the sun came through the leaves in a particular way in a forest that made you feel that sense of ease and comfort, support that from being in that beauty. And as you're just practicing with that, sometimes it's very new to notice our sensations that we're feeling and just kind of just experiment with that. I've maybe just even by writing about it or thinking about it, I feel a little bit sense of ease. I feel a sense of warmth maybe around my heart. And one of the things that in CBCT, with each of those modules that I went through earlier, there's a paired meditation that goes with it. And the meditation is really about practicing the skill. Because what we found in CBCT is that, and with other practices like this, and part of what the research has been about, is when these, that it's like we're developing new neural pathways so that when we're stressed, it's easier to connect to those moments. They're more available to us to help bring us more into our zone of well-being. So it's like going to the gym and building these muscles of connecting to this moment. So I'm just going to invite us now to do a very brief meditation with this and just to kind of try this on. And maybe as before we begin, I just want to share that sometimes when you're writing out a moment of nurturance and just thinking about it, that is a way to feel really connected to it. And another way to do that is to go within and do a little brief practice. And sometimes when we go in and do a brief practice and we're within our mental experience, some other things can come forward. Like if we're writing about a time with our grandmother who may no longer be present in our lives physically, we might have some grief that comes in, and that's perfectly natural. And so we can say, let me just allow that grief and then see if I can just gently focus my attention back on this sense of nurture and connection that I'm experiencing. And if that feels like it's not working because, it's there's too many other layers of things or something that might have happened before that moment or after that moment, that's not as supportive, that you can just find another moment that's maybe a little bit more neutral to spend time with. So there's always options here, and there's no doing this wrong. It's just about exploring. So I'm just going to invite you, if you'd like to try this on, or you can just continue just to listen to this. You don't need to do this practice if you don't want to. You can just listen. But if you'd like to, you can just find a posture that supports both a sense of alertness, like having your spine straight, your hands on your lap, and your feet on the floor. Or you can stand up, whatever's supportive. The sense of alertness as well as increased relaxation. Just taking a moment maybe to just settle in the moment, maybe taking a deep breath in and out if that's supportive. Just settling a little bit. And then just for a moment, bring to mind this moment of nurture and connection. We're going to paint the picture of this moment in our mental experience using our senses. Like what were you seeing? If you were in a moment of nurturance, of nature, were you seeing trees, maybe some birds, or maybe if you were in a moment with a person, just really seeing their face, or with a pet? What were you hearing? Maybe supportive words, or the sound of the wind in the trees. Is there a scent in the air? And then what you were feeling in that moment, just identifying that. And then as you can, just very gently placing yourself in that moment and just allowing yourself to receive that nurture and that care as if it was happening in this moment. And again, this can be an imagined moment as well. Just taking in that support, that connection. And if your attention wanders, it's not a problem. You just gently come back or change to another moment of nurture if that's more supportive. Just dropping into it, connecting to that sense of support and nurture. And then as we bring this to a conclusion, we can just notice if there's been any shifts in our physical experience as a result of resting in this moment of nurture. Do we feel some relief? Like maybe our shoulders are relaxing a little bit more, maybe feeling a little bit more in our zone of well-being. We feel some warmth around our heart. Again, not forcing anything, but just noticing if there's any shifts. And perhaps just setting the intention to try to practice this when it makes sense to us to cultivate more of this capacity to connect to this resource within us when needed. And then when you feel ready, you can just return back to this moment. And thank you for just trying that on however you did, if it was through listening or continued writing or doing a brief meditation. Lots of different options of engaging with this. So if anyone wants to put anything in the chat, any questions about that practice, please feel free to do so. If you want to share anything about what that experience was like or a moment of nurturance, there's quite a range here. So lots of options for answers and engagement. But I also wanted to, maybe we could put in the chat the compassion.emory.edu link. And just to know that you can go to that link and find out more about taking the full course of CBCT. There's lots of different ways of doing it now. There's an asynchronous course that has some facilitation. There's some more information you can learn about the research of CBCT. You can also, on that website, learn about C-learning if you want to learn more about how they have developed this. It's now this is also another researched piece, and it's in like 100,000 schools just in India, and now it's spreading all around the world. It's actually was started here in Atlanta, the pilot of C-learning. So a lot of information there if you're interested. And they can also answer questions. You can find ways of interacting with that team there at the Compassion Center. But I've been a CBCT teacher for about 10 years and have integrated it very much into my life as an educator in spiritual health. And and I hope this can be a resource to you. This is just a very, very quick snippet into it, but wanted to give you a little bit of a glimpse and hopefully understanding more about the zone of well-being um, can be a resource to you, as well as having this sense of connecting to a moment of nurturance that can maybe happen more spontaneously throughout the day when you need a little reminder that you have some access to that in the midst of the ups and downs of our lives. And hopefully help to create more self-compassion in the midst of your day. So thank you again for all that you do for our children and the legacy that you're giving. And may you drink in care as you're pouring out.
Thank you very much. We can wait a couple minutes for if anyone has anything they'd like to share, any questions. You can do so in the chat.
And if you wanted to reach out to me, you could also reach out to me at maureen.shelton@emoryhealthcare.org. Um, and I'm happy to answer any questions. You can also get some people from the Compassion Center to come out and speak. They have an amazing group of folks, but I'm also happy to answer questions too. Thank you again for the invitation to be here with you.
Thank you so much for coming on. So, Maureen, we have someone asking if you come and speak to schools in person.
I'm happy to talk with you about that, absolutely. And when I left being a teacher in that setting to be here, I said I want to do whatever I can for teachers. So I'm happy to do that, as well as it can put you in touch with the Compassion Center as well. So we'll figure out a way. Thank you. Yes, and happy holidays. Any other thoughts or questions? I think I'm seeing all those.
Um, don't see any more. Thank you. Okay, well, we can end our recording here, and if a discussion comes up afterwards, then we can stay for that. Thank you, everyone, for joining for our December talk. We will send the recording out and have it on our website as well, so everyone can access that. And we will also share out in that the link to the CBCT, is that what it's called?
Yep.
The Emory CBCT landing page as well.
Great.